never compromise. You get up high
Alright, test 1, 2. See if this is working properly now. Alright. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. There's still something wrong. Hang on. Check 1, 2. There we go. There we go. There we go. Now we're cooking. Figure there aren't going to be too many of you tuning in immediately. I figured I'd at least give this a shot. But we have a interesting situation coming into play. Let me go ahead and just turn the music off at this point. It's kind of distracting me a little bit. But hey everybody, been a little while. Excuse the room for being messy. I'm in the middle of washing my bed, so looks a little bit skimpy in here at the moment, and I apologize. But it's going to be a pretty active day, and really just an active few weeks ahead in regards to the weather here. So today, as you can see, we have a slight risk issued for severe weather. This does include a tornado risk and damaging wind threat primarily. There is a hail threat with it as well, but this is set to take place within the next couple of hours. So quick little rundown of this is what we're going to be doing first here. We're going to be taking a look at our wind and our tornado threat. I wouldn't expect any upgrades to enhanced risk or higher. The parameters are not set up in such a way to where I would be very concerned about that. Honestly, I'm still kind of uncertain as to whether we get anything at all. It could go either way, if I'm being completely honest. I think that there's a chance that we could see something significant if we end up getting the worst timing possible. But at the same time, I really think that we're going to see a very messy storm mode. A lot of embedded tornadoes within the main part of the storms. Is going to be mostly a linear event. I wouldn't rule out a couple of prefrontal cells with tornado potential, but they seem like they're not all that likely at this time. We're going to go ahead and take a look at our radar activity right now. You can see that we have a fair amount of shower and thunderstorm activity. A lot of these areas where we're going to be looking at a little bit later are already clear. The HRRR has done a pretty decent job of picking up on that. There's still other details I'm looking at right now. Cloud cover being, of course, one of those. But I'm not sure if I have that available on here. It looks like based off of the infrared. Oh no, there it is. Okay, there it is, the geocolor. We do have some clearing right here, which was highlighted yesterday in the video we talked about then. We see also some clearing to the south here. So the atmosphere over towards these regions is destabilizing as we speak, and we're going to need to watch that very closely. I would expect storms to start to really kick up probably around, I would say, 1 to 3 o'clock Central Time, and then just kind of consolidate into a line at this point. So some things have changed, of course, since the last time I've been live here. Pivotal Weather now has weather models, which is really nice. I'm sure the 12Z just came in not long ago. So I'm getting used to using these on here. Hopefully they're a little bit easier to work with than previous radar sites that I've used in the past. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have available, for example. So right now we're looking at the amount of CAPE that we have in the atmosphere towards these areas. What I'm hoping to be able to do is control the loop with the arrow key. If not, we'll just switch over to Pivotal Weather. We do have that website up as well. Yeah, I don't think it's going to let me do that, is it? Yeah, I'd have to do it manually. That's too much of a pain. Okay, so give me 1 second here. This is the first time I've actually gotten a chance to really use the models on WeatherWise, which is really cool that they did it, but, you know, just one of those things. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up. Where is it? There we go. There we are. Alright, now I just need this off my screen so that way you all can see it clearly. Alright, so I guess we got to do it this way. Kind of roughing it in a sense. We'll take weatherwise off for now. I don't know why this got smaller though. I am kind of curious as to why that became a thing. But anyway, hopefully you guys can see everything properly since I got that fixed up. But basically this is our culprit right here. This is going to be the problem. This is going to be our problem for the day, the catalyst behind all our problems for the weather. I'm going to set this back just a little bit so that we have this, that way we can get a clear view of what's going on here. So this trough that's going to be kind of setting things off, and it's going to be deepening bit by bit as we get through the day. Now, one of the limiting factors, as I mentioned in last night's video, was this jet max that we're seeing that's way back here towards the Rockies. If this had been a little bit closer towards maybe Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas region, that would have been a big problem. Tornado threat would be much higher. We probably would see something like an enhanced risk or higher, but thankfully that will not be the case today. Even so, the forcing will be there. We'll have a fair amount of instability towards this region, and as a result you can even kind of see it on here based on these little blotches that you see on the screen. Definitely expecting more of a linear mode, and that's going to pretty much be the predominant mode. Like I said, I do think there could be potential for a couple of prefrontal cells, but the main frontal boundary, which is somewhere back here, is going to be the driving force behind this event today. It does look like there is a little max that tries to pop up over here and a little bit of increased activity towards the south. That much hasn't really changed from what I saw last night, so everything's kind of holding up consistently with what we've been talking about. There is a chance that a more significant tornado threat could occur over here towards this tri-state region between Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, especially northern parts of Louisiana, northeastern parts. We were to watch this progress off to the east a little bit, then our attention might shift into maybe north central parts of Mississippi as well. It's going to be kind of one of those sneaky days where just about anything could end up happening. We could see something of more significant consequence if everything were to come together. But I think the storm mode might be the biggest limiting factor there. Do have that marginal risk that's a little bit further towards the north. But with this, though, I don't really see a lot that will end up coming into play for this region either. I think Illinois, we're going to mainly see, for the most part, a linear mode that happens earlier in the day, and then maybe a second round of stronger storms that come in. Main threat will most likely be damaging winds. I wouldn't rule out a tornado, but I would find it a little bit more unlikely than what we have in store for these areas down here. Like I said, I really think this could be a day that it's not going to be anything of significance, but you never know. Great example was June 20th. The Enderlin tornado got rated EF5 on a day where we weren't even really expecting tornadoes like that. That was like maybe a conditional 10% hatched risk, to kind of put things into perspective for you. So you always have to be very watchful of the weather and respectful of it nonetheless. Because it's always the moment when you let your guard down, something crazy ends up happening here. So one other thing with this storm system is going to be the lack of low-level jet. If we were able to get some lower-level jet to come in a little bit earlier in the day, and I'm not saying that there isn't any, there's some in a couple sneaky pockets. If we could get a little bit better low-level jet, just a tiny bit more forcing, I think we would get something of greater significance. I'm trying to see just what we could be working with a little bit further out ahead of this. So I'm going to click the sounding and see what we end up getting. We do get a marginal tornado threat with this. This is probably one of the better soundings that I've seen over the last few days. But again, with the forcing being not quite as impressive, the lift index is, I mean, it's meeting the mark, but just barely. And as far as our thermodynamics towards the mid levels to upper levels of the atmosphere, we're kind of lackluster. That again is due in large part to that jet max just not quite being where we need it to be for a more notable event, which is really a good thing. You look at the Cape values on the skew T here, you can see that we're sitting in the 1500s on average around the surface and mixed layers of the atmosphere. The shear is a little bit on the weaker side, but still sufficient enough to get something going. But again, it's not going to be a day where we're dealing with long track tornadoes, not going to be a day where we end up dealing with a big outbreak. It's just going to be a handful of tornadoes here. We'll be live probably for a little bit, just kind of waiting to see what happens with it. But you never know. Dixie Alley and the Ozarks, they work in mysterious ways. So the next thing we're going to do now, of course, is actually take a look at the Cape values. And that's really another one of the driving forces behind this event. We have an abundant amount of Cape, even though it's not the highest values that we've seen. About 1,000, really I would say about 750 would be enough. Once you get to about 1,000 to 2,000, you're looking pretty good. And we have widespread 1,500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram on Cape here at the surface, which is exactly what you would need for a severe weather event like this, especially with tornadic activity involved here. In fact, in the next few hours, there's a couple places here that actually get up to about 2,200. So it's these areas that I'm most intrigued with. But again, that linear storm mode, these storms are going to be forming on top of each other, kind of crowded. The forcing also is kind of subtle, but again, the forcing also being a little bit more on the subtle side does lead me to have a level of intrigue. But at this point in time, like I mentioned before, those lower level winds and really just the shear in general just isn't there. The timing, once again, it's off. Like I said, jet max comes in, completely different story. But that other little piece of the trough that we talked about earlier that's kind of lagging back here, if that deepens by chance, we could have something there. Like I said, I'm not too hot on that happening. I'm not expecting much with that there, but something else that we'll just have to keep an eye on. Morning, Chandler. So one other thing I'm going to look at here, and this isn't really going to be anything of major significance, just kind of prove my point here with today's setup. This is significant tornado parameter. I'll actually zoom in so that way you can see where the highest values would be, but like I said, don't expect much out of this. The highest number I've seen on this hour is about maybe a 1.8. At its highest point, and this is over towards Texas, we get all the way up to about maybe a 3.5. We'll go ahead and click that sounding, see what we get out of it. I would expect mostly again, linear mode, and I think the storms will be a little too far off to the east at this point. The shear here looks good, don't get me wrong. And there's still instability, but I think the frontal boundary already starts to pass at this point. This is before sunset, though, so there is a level of intrigue to be had there, too. So I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to bite on this or not, but like I said, we'll probably just be hanging around for a bit, just waiting to see what happens there. I honestly have no idea what time we plan to go live today, but we will be going live at some point. See what we get out of this as we go further along. And that's pretty much it. Because it really seems like the tale of two events. I didn't know how that happened. Sorry, guys. Alright, so this is the last thing that we'll talk about in regards to today, because we actually have a whole pattern that we need to discuss here. Because today's setup is really just the beginning of what's shaping to be a pretty active pattern. Branson, let me pull up weather-wise again. Yeah, let me put the smaller window up if I can, so that way I can show you what's going on. It's been a while since I've done this, so I'm a little on the rusty side. Okay, there we go. Try to make this a little bigger while I'm at it too. Yeah. All right, should be able to see everything pretty well. Okay, so what state exactly is that? Just to make sure that I'm typing in the right one. I'm assuming it's Branson, Texas, or Branson, Oklahoma, but I just want to make sure. It could actually be Branson, Missouri. It is Missouri. Okay. No, this is actually not the main line, though. Main line hasn't even fired yet. You were expected to get like an early round of showers and storms, and then we're going to see an increase in intensity as we go throughout the day. There's going to be a point where this may actually clear out a little bit. You might see a brief period of wow, I cannot speak. Sunshine, possibly. And then after that, the storms will redevelop. One thing I do wish that we could get here on weather-wise maybe be surface analysis, so we can look at exactly where the frontal boundaries are here. But yeah, this area right here, this is just some showers and thunderstorms. This is not the beginning of the event just yet. We still got a little ways to go there. Is there a Branson, Texas, though? Now I'm curious. Gotta stay focused. There's a Branson, Colorado. No, not a Branson, Texas. Well, at least I'll know for next time. But let's go back here and get a look at our timing. Because you actually came in at the perfect time, Chandler. I was just talking about when I would expect things to pick up. So this is about our current time frame here. This would be right at about 10 o'clock Central Time. There are your showers and thunderstorms that you're dealing with right now, actually. And then we'll see this clear out, and then here's where we get that redevelopment to occur. I would think it would be about maybe 1 o'clock Central where things would get going. And then you'll have persistent rain from that point all the way until late in the evening, and then that's finally going to start to go away probably overnight. Given what we're looking at based off of radar structure here, like I said, I think the central part of Arkansas, maybe Arkansas-Oklahoma border, might have a few prefrontal cells possible with this as well. Might have increasing damaging wind potential possible over towards the central part. As the main line comes through, we'll always have to be watchful of any mergers towards the northern part of the state. And then over towards Louisiana, I think we're starting to have a much better trend with prefrontal cells than what I've been seeing over the last couple of days. Of course, I don't always have the HRRR at my disposal until like the very end either. But we have some prefrontal cells that are kind of going in that south to north motion. So I'm thinking mergers are going to be the play here for anyone that's more interested in this area. And it looks like we could see something a little bit more significant maybe as we draw towards parts of Mississippi, especially north central Mississippi, as I mentioned earlier, towards the end of the string, towards the end of the evening here. And then we'll watch this line begin to weaken as we go throughout the day tomorrow. We'll have plenty of showers and thunderstorms to start out the day early over towards the deep south, and then we'll be done with this. But again, as I mentioned before, guys, this is part of a more significant weather pattern that we have going on here. Let me actually get out of this view and go all the way to the contiguous 48 here. Come on. There you go. Sometimes pivotal moves a little bit slower than what I'd like for it to. All right. Go ahead and take that off of there for right now. Alright, so we're going to put this at a slower loop here. But this is our first storm system. But watch what happens right behind that. We get yet another that comes in here. And this brings a little bit more cold air behind it. Oh, don't freeze on me. Come on. And this might be the point where I would say we need to pay closer attention, maybe over towards the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. But I'm still got some questions with this as well. The trough isn't quite as deep as what it once was, maybe a couple of days ago when I first saw this on models. But I will still say that severe weather might be possible with this on Monday. Originally, I was kind of leaning towards it being more significant towards the 21st, but it looks like that scenario is kind of dwindling at this point. We do have the euro to compare this to in just a little bit, and we'll take a closer look at that. Surprisingly, with this trough kind of hanging a little further to the north based off the GFS outcome, this isn't going to really knock down the temperatures all that significantly, but it is going to make things feel better towards the eastern half of the U.S. Meanwhile, while we're looking over towards the southwest, we have another trough that comes in, and that's keeping that monsoon moisture in play for the regions over here. I've had some significant rain over here as well due to setups like this in conjunction with some deteriorating tropical depressions that have come through. So it looks like the active pattern over there is set to continue. And then this trough kind of almost looks in a way like a carbon copy of what we're dealing with today. But we'll see what happens with that one. We're obviously past a week out at this point, or just about at a week out, so not a whole lot to go off of here. I would say the main threat is damaging winds, Chandler. I wouldn't be too concerned. Just be ready if things do begin to change. Like I said, I'll be live today, so we will be covering that. We'll be covering everything that's going on. I would say that you shouldn't have too much to worry about. I mean, the weather's going to be nasty. I will say that much. That's just a given. But it's not going to... I don't expect this to be a big outbreak. Like I said, the jury's out on that until we end up seeing anything, until we end up, seeing everything play out. But for right now, it looks like, we're okay. Or you'll be okay. But we'll make sure you get through this. So this is something new. I haven't had a chance to really look at this model. I just came back in from the gym not long ago. So looking at this has given me a little bit more intrigue. Looking at this run in particular. This trough comes into play and it holds out like this. Holy cow, that's a big deal right there. That could be a big severe weather event around the 27th into the 28th. This almost looks like it becomes a cutoff low. And then it maybe sets the stage for another event towards the Gulf Coast states, maybe to begin the month of November. Which, I mean, if we're being honest, it's right on schedule because this is technically our second severe season. It does not surprise me a bit, really, to see anything like this, especially as we're shifting from our spring season. Jeez, I cannot speak today. Shift from our summer into fall season, then from fall to winter. This kind of stuff just tends to happen during spring and fall, so it's during our equinoxes, if you will. Dang, I'm wondering what that workout might have done to me. Sheesh. But one other thing we'll take a look at here with this is the temperatures, because that's important to everyone, especially during this time of year. And the other thing, there's probably a couple other parameters I'll look at as well. Wait, let me actually go back. I want to make one quick comparison to the euro here, even though the euro's range from this time frame is a little bit more limited. So let's go back, put this in a loop, because it's that system around the 21st that we're really going to be looking for. We're watching this roll out, and then I think the euro originally had the more aggressive scenario coming into play, but it seems like both of them have kind of downtrended since then. I really think that we might not see anything too significant with that. Seems like the GFS outcome definitely won between the two models here. Then you do see that other trough coming into play at the end of that model run. By the time we would get into lunchtime, while we're streaming, if nothing's going on, I will talk about that then. Oh, no problem, Chandler. Happy to help. But in this case, yeah, I would say that right now, as far as next week is concerned, I'm not really all that worried yet. I think the 21st scenario, or the 20th into the 21st, that scenario has kind of downtrended a bit, so it looks like we might catch a brief break. I'm still going to be watching that pretty closely. Depending on how things look, I might even make a video tomorrow or maybe early Monday morning. Like I said, it really just depends on how the models are trending at that point. So I guess now we will shift our attention back to the GFS here and get a look at our temperatures. Uh-oh. Let me go ahead and do this. There we go. Alright. So obviously, like I said before, temperatures are going to be a big topic, because some people's fall foliages haven't really been all that prominent due to the warmer than average temperatures. Everything's kind of stayed green for a little bit longer. Change will be coming though, because one thing to remember is with these troughs, you're going to end up seeing more cold air being introduced, and it's going to slowly but surely work its way to the south. But the foliage is going to be coming in a little bit quicker, more so towards the northern states, maybe the central states as well. So let's go ahead and put this into a loop here. You can see that, especially over this first week, the above average temperatures, the warmer temperatures are going to be dominant. But by the time we get into the beginning of this week, there's a notable difference that pops up, especially over the southern states. Now, not every day is going to be as nice as what we could see next week, but it's definitely an improvement from what we've had. I don't see as widespread of the 80s or even 90-degree temperatures, because normally when we look over towards Texas particularly, in some areas, especially over towards the south, we would end up seeing some 90s. Not seeing as much of that there, which is a good thing. If you're further up to the north, it's definitely starting to feel a little bit more like fall, especially get towards the very end of the month, around Halloween time. So it's going to start to feel as it's supposed to, whereas a lot of us, especially further out towards the south and eastern states, it's been kind of an in-betweener. Not quite feeling like summer, but definitely not feeling like fall, that's for sure. But definitely some improvements on the way here. Some good news to be had. I'm going to take a look at this out of curiosity, even though it may have killed the cat. We're going to go ahead and do that and take a look at our instability that's available for these upcoming systems. I guess I'm that type that just couldn't wait to open the gifts, I suppose. So really what I'm trying to nail down right now is what in particular do we have in regards for that signal for the 20th and beyond. I think with that trough downtrending, we're not really going to see a whole lot. This is definitely kind of confirming that for me. If that trough was to be a little bit more deepened, if that trough was to have deepened a little bit more, I should say, then I would think that we would have something of greater significance. But it doesn't really look like that's going to be the case here. As far as the other events after that, that other trough that should be coming around this time frame, I would expect to maybe see a weak signal. Obviously at range, there it is right there. The numbers aren't going to be all that impressive, but the fact that I'm seeing that this far out does lead me to have a little bit of a slight increase in confidence there. And then you can kind of see a couple other signals coming into play. If the GFS scenario wins out with this setup, like let's say towards the very end of the month, I would have a little bit more confidence in that. But still, like I said, very long time before we can start to really get into the finite details with those setups. Really, anything past 5 days is a little bit of a stretch in my opinion, but we still, of course, will talk about them, especially if there's good model agreement. But obviously, right now, I don't have the European model available to me at 360 hours. It's just 144 now. Excuse me. So I guess to wrap this one up, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the precip maps here. Because one other thing that I'm interested in, I do expect to see some wintry precip with this as well, up towards the higher elevations. I am kind of curious to see just what may come of that. But as of right now, I don't think we're going to see anything in the valleys. Okay, so let's roll this forward. Here's our severe weather event. Here's some of that mountain snow I was talking about. This is going to probably push all the way into the Rockies. And here's a system where we start to maybe even see some snow for the UP of Michigan over towards North Dakota and northern parts of Minnesota. So our first little taste of winter starting to show up over here. That trough is going to remain pretty weak, so weather's going to be kind of on the down low there. Then, in regards to the next system, which is going to be our trough here, this is a little bit more prominent signal there. Definitely leans into a setup maybe over towards both the Ozarks, Midwest, and maybe even the Gulf Coast states. Then we start to see a more notable storm popping up here with winter weather potential and also severe potential towards the end of the month. Like I said, with only one model to compare it to right now, not going to hype anything up with that, as if I ever do anyway in general. And then here's an interesting signal at the very end of the model run. Obviously 384 hours out, you can see plenty of madness kind of occurring. But with that big shift in the pattern as we get towards the very end of the month, more cold air is prevalent, and on the back side of these systems, you always have to watch out for a little bit of snowfall. This definitely kind of looks more along the lines of a lake effect type of event that would occur here. This would probably be the first of the season if this scenario does indeed play out. You do also see some snow up towards the northern Appalachia that will be pretty interesting here. Not expecting anything of significance from that over there, but if we can get this scenario to play out with some lake effect snow, you can always get some big numbers from those events. But let's run the rest of this model out, and that's pretty much it. Well, I appreciate all of you tuning in. This has just been a quick discussion here going over today's severe weather potential and also the weather pattern as a whole. I don't know what today's stream may bring in regards to severe weather particularly. If it's a shorter stream, then more than likely we'll try to see if we can't sneak a video in tonight. There's plenty of stuff to talk about. There's tropics, there's a winter outlook, there's so much that we have to catch up on after this storm system's over. If we can't do it today, we'll do it next week, so plenty of content coming soon. But that's all for now. We're going to get ready for the stream later this afternoon, and we'll go on from that point. Make sure you have that notification bell on. Make sure you have notifications set to all, and I hope to see you at the stream. Everyone, take care, and I'll see you soon.